Good afternoon. Welcome to Smart Justice Works. My name is Makia Metzger, and I'm the Cobb County Solicitor General. And with me today is our lovely Chairwoman, Ms. Lisa Cupid.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Glad to be.
Today we will delve into basically Chairwoman Cupid's outstanding career here in Cobb County, as we all want to get to know her a little better and talk a little bit about how our office, law enforcement, public safety, interfaces with the Commissioner's office. But first I'm going to start out with you. Specifically, well, how is your end of year going? I know school's almost out.
Yes, thank God. I tell my kids when they're on break, we're on break.
Not too soon, I
Yes.
hope. Yeah, we're getting ready.
Yeah.
We're getting ready. Now, I know that you have this extremely aspiring career, from engineer to lawyer to a chairwoman, a public servant. Just tell us a little bit about that journey and what inspired you to leave the private sector and to become a public servant.
Thank you. I can say I did not begin with the end in mind. I did not perceive that I would ever be in elected office, and I think I've just always taken advantage of moments as they were before me. And for me, you know, the moment for my original career was following my father's footsteps. He was an engineer, and the field that I probably felt most acquainted with was his, because he would sometimes take me and my sisters to his job to look around the plant. And having some, proclivity in math and science, I was encouraged to go into that field. And my mother, she always encouraged me and my sisters to be involved in some activity, something service-oriented. And I just didn't know how that would end up kind of consuming everything that I did, including how I served as an engineer, being perhaps more people-oriented in those roles. And so I was brought into leadership very quickly as an engineer. And after having a performance assessment from a manager in HR, they shared with me that I'm the only engineer that's scoring very high on public service. And I think he just planted a seed of discontent. And I started to think about what my life could be outside of manufacturing, outside of logistics. And I think God also started to impress that upon my heart. And so just looking at opportunities to go back to school, I did that. And then I serendipitously was in jury duty, and I met my first boss that gave me my first job outside of engineering.
Wow. And
it opened up my eyes to all of the opportunities in public service. And I think that had a big a big role in me seeing that I could do something else, and perhaps my life was charted for something else.
And you have served in, well, several roles. First as commissioner from, I believe, 2013.
Yeah.
And you're also the first, I believe, Black woman and woman chairwoman in Cobb County.
That's right.
Which is no small feat. So
Agreed. Sometimes I have to pinch myself to realize what it is, because again, everything that I'm doing, I'm kind of looking at how can I accomplish what's before me. So sometimes I have to stop and just survey how far I've come and really enjoy the moment, but also to take seriously the responsibility that comes when you're the first, because there are people who may not have felt as if they've been represented. And I know that as much as it's a great achievement, there's also a call to make sure that I'm being mindful of people who may have felt as if they have not, as if they could have been left behind by not seeing themselves reflected, not just in the personhood, but also in policy.
Right. Yeah, I'll go back to a comic hero, Spider-Man, with great power comes
Ah,
great responsibility.
I think that sums it up quite well. Yeah.
That's what I keep hearing when you speak, and
Yeah.
I know that you take the job very, very seriously, and I appreciate that because I live in Cobb County.
Yes.
So I appreciate that, we have a chairwoman who is constantly evolving, moving forward. And I guess the next question would be, you were a commissioner, and
Yes.
then you ran for the seat of chairwoman.
Yes.
And what inspired you to make that move?
I think that I did very well as a commissioner, but with some limitations. That for some of the big issues to move in the areas that I was serving directly as District 4, which mostly minority area, more moderate in income than other areas of the county. I felt like it was going to take a majority of the board to understand and take seriously those concerns. And even before it take a majority, it would take the head. And I knew that if I could get in the lead role, that I could make sure the concerns of underserved communities could really be taken more seriously and put at the forefront of our policy making. And so I kind of I told myself, you kind of go hard or you go home, that I've put up the good fight for 8 years, and I couldn't see myself continuing to feel as if my capability was being boxed. And so I was going to just try to see how I can make a difference.
It was a brave move.
It was very brave.
Being that you're the first.
Yes.
Being the first, as we've just mentioned, it's not exactly, it's you have to really reach and stretch.
You can tell us all about it, I'm sure.
Well, you have done it. You came before me.
Yeah.
You actually came before me in time. So, when I look at you, I see a mentor. I see someone who, even though we are in different fields, you know what I do, but in a different way, I do see those ambitions, the fight really, and then having a vision, obviously, and wanting that vision to materialize needs leadership.
Yes.
And you have to stretch to be a leader so that you can make the vision happen. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
And you just put into words exactly what I have been struggling with.
I can only imagine, but we all have to do our part, because no matter what struggles we have, it makes it a little bit easier for those behind us. I'm the first African American female chair, but I'm not the first African female commissioner.
Correct.
And I know the challenges that she had do not compare to the challenges that I've had. And even if you look in greater historical context, right, the challenges that other African American leaders had before us, even beyond Cobb County, pale. Our struggles pale, right?
I mean,
so it's just
our children have it easy compared to us,
no,
right?
they don't know whether or not they perceive that is something different,
And we have it easier than the kids who had to go into schools as the first black kids.
There you go.
Desegregating
There you
a
go.
place like UGA Law, which is where I attended.
Wow.
Many moons back before 1954,
Yes.
I would not have been accepted
I hear you.
at one of the premier colleges in Georgia
Yeah.
to obtain a law degree. And that's still, it's such a, I feel overwhelmed sometimes. I'm like, someone had to struggle and
Yes.
fight for me to sit in this class.
Exactly.
That is amazing to me. So yes, our struggles are less, but nonetheless, they're still struggles.
Yeah.
Right?
Very true.
So hopefully we will pave the way
Yeah.
for future generations and equalize opportunities, what I call it.
Yeah.
Now I know that since 2013 to now, walking into this role, and you had to face some challenges. Can you tell me a little bit about some of those, I guess, probably the ones that stand out and that you feel that those challenges, whether you overcame them or how you worked on them, how they affected your leadership style and how you evolved from those challenges.
Okay, tell me from which year, coming back as a
I
commissioner
think you
or
started
as
out
chair?
in 2013, and I know it changes, but is there sort of a trend or a theme in that, or something that stands out for you that you had to overcome and it changed you?
I think every day. I think personally, professionally, politically, if you were to refer this space to be a political space in every realm. You know, personally, I was a mom at the time and balancing two very young children, a husband who's working in a big law firm, and my desire to make sure that I was showing up for the community in a way that I felt was overdue. So I put a lot of pressure on myself to do all things, almost be all things. I would think professionally,
I'm not going to bring up those commission meetings because I think I've only seen a couple of those, and they tend to be very, they seem pretty colorful.
Yeah, I think I was surprised by how limited I was in living where I did and how it reflected all of Cobb, that there was just an understanding, maybe the same, we were all living off the same sheet of music when it came to addressing policy, and I didn't realize just how disconnected perhaps some of the challenges were living in the Six Flags area of Cobb County, and realizing that those citizens wanted the same things, but there were different hurdles.
Absolutely.
And so if you have blanket policy, they sometimes don't address that disparity. And sometimes my challenge was just in trying to make it very clear. Also professionally, I ran for office when I was in law school and got my master's in public administration. I'm a pretty, what you would call it, I'm critical thinker about things.
You're an engineer, you have to.
And so
the nuts and bolts do matter.
Yes.
Right. And you see that, which is a huge benefit for this county.
Thank you.
Because I think it takes, when we talk about diversity, it's diversity of thinking, right? It's also diversity of education. We all come at problems a little differently, but doesn't mean we're all wrong.
I received that.
So, but I do, one of the things I have observed over the past 2 years and since I've been in office was your ability to actually listen. I think that you might not have observed that as your strength, but I actually
hope
think
Craig Cupid is listening, that I'm a great listener.
and communicator.
Yes.
And communicator. I have never been to any of your events where I haven't felt like you really, I don't want to say reached out and touched because that sounds like a crime. But you actually communicated in a way that people could receive. So you read the room really well, and I liked that because I was like, wow, that's, as a lawyer, these are the things I look at. I think you could communicate some very maybe not so easy concepts or things that have nuance in a way that people actually go, okay, I see that. They may not agree with you, but if they're listening, they should be able to understand the concepts. So those are the things I observed, and I was grateful for that different type of thinking. I think somebody has to look at the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
We need
thank
that.
You.
We
thank
need that.
You. I appreciate that.
And pivoting back, how do you sort of ensure that in your role you represent everybody, just like I do, but how do you ensure the communities that have been historically underrepresented have a seat at the table, that they're heard, that the policies, and I know that's probably one of the challenges, that the policies that do go into effect look at those historic disadvantages, and the policies actually have a positive impact in those communities.
So looking at perhaps some historical disparity, it's not always clear to everyone what that history is. And so I think when I first came on board, I was so supercharged in realizing I understood it, but other people may not understand that. So for me, I think as time has gone on in serving in this role, I've had to realize that I have to take everyone at face value, and I can't make any presumptions about what people may know could be driving my interest in this policy matter. So I've rekindled this initiative called All In, so that as we're setting policy, we're giving space for everyone to be at the table and letting them share their perspective around big decisions that we're making. So I did that around House Bill 581 for property taxes. We're going to do that around our budget.
I do appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
That was it's very important to know how you'll be affected by legislation.
Yes.
And whether you need to be a part of it or not.
Yes, exactly. And we make big decisions as a board, and there's responsibility that comes with our role of expecting that there are some things that we do not know. But we also are in place based on what people perceive about us, and what they perceive is what they perceive they know. So I've just realized that they need to be educated.
Because they think you're responsible for everything, including the school board or something.
They imbue me with a lot more power than what I
Right.
actually do have. But I think one of our greatest ways to be empowered, even as elected officials, is to empower those that put us in our positions, because I think none of us want to walk without the confidence that those that put us in our positions believe and trust the decisions that we're making. And even though we may have our individual bases that may be comfortable, I realize as chairwoman, I serve a lot of people who may not necessarily be part of that base, but who certainly still have a lot of interest in setting policy, and will also be impacted by it. And so I just think it's very important for me to have learned how to just kind of separate myself from it. And it's hard to do that because the issues that I've been passionate about are still issues, right?
Right.
That's still
I think
there.
you plant the seed.
That's it.
And you do a good job doing that, even if you
Yeah.
don't acknowledge it today.
Thank you.
I do think you plant a seed. And, one of those seeds I think you planted for me was all too real when for spring break, we went to London. And I know transportation has been one of your passionate issues.
Yes.
What I observed in London and Manchester, they had like 5 or 6 modes of ways of getting around. Bike trails for young people, sidewalks. I walked a lot, so that was important. I didn't want to get hit by a car.
Yes.
Trams,
Yes.
subway and buses, and of course your cabs. So for me, it was like, why can't we have this, right? It shouldn't be so. It should not be a divisive issue, because it's really about different modes. I live 20 minutes from the square, and it takes me 40 minutes, sometimes to an hour, to get to work because of congestion.
Wow.
So if you're leaving, like when the kids are going to school, the school buses, everybody's going in the same way, right? Same direction. So I can't imagine why this is such a divisive issue, because it's just from getting from point A to point B in a way that makes sense.
Something that I've perceived along the way is that a lot of our policy is based on existential issues. You can look at the policy of housing, look at the policy of transportation, look at the policy of education. At some point, it's going to reflect who we perceive we are as a county, how we perceive we are as a people. And those are the really tough
You're talking about values.
issues
Values.
to address.
Right?
Values and even history, even disparities or passions, interests, opportunities. I think they are a lot less homogenous than they used to be. But we have, and we see it when we see different people, when we see different communities, but we don't address it. And then when you have these policy issues that need addressing, they get hung up on the very thing that we don't take the time to really recognize is just who we are, how we've changed, and that perhaps elementally there's some, or fundamentally, there's some different things about who we are as a county.
Right.
And until I think we come to terms with some of those things, there's always going to be some unsaid elements that, well, I won't say unsaid.
Sometimes they say it very clearly at these commission meetings that I've heard. They're not unsaid.
They're
but
not
they express
unsaid,
themselves.
but they're more charged than they should be.
Right.
And I just don't think we take time to perceive that just because something is not my issue doesn't mean that it's an issue that is worthy of being addressed from a public policy perspective.
I mean, I understand. I don't think it's always true that people don't want to get taxed more. That's across the board, right?
Certainly.
I think that whenever you say the word taxes,
Yes.
you're going to have a lot of pushback.
Yes.
Politically, that's just the way it goes
Yes.
for everyone. And the thing is, the question, there has to be a balance. What are we paying for? What are we going to get?
Agreed.
And is it going to improve the quality of our lives collectively, not just me?
Agreed.
And I don't think those are the concerns with the loudest voices, which tend to take up most of the airtime.
I think there's many ways that we can go back and look at how things could have been done differently. I think sometimes when it comes to particularly even transportation, we're so measured and data driven, but there is a way that I think we could have better connected with people beyond just looking at the nuts and bolts of what this service delivery was going to look like. How is it going to impact people and change lives and, like as you said, impact quality of life here in the county?
Right.
And I think we spent less time doing that. And I think just because I think we were fighting amongst ourselves, we were limiting ourselves.
Right.
And even
Do
how
you
that message
think-
was being.
Do you think that the fight just becomes about winning at some point rather than doing the right thing? Like, Mr. Cupid wants it, she's a Democrat, therefore we all are going to fight her. I hope that's not where we are, but sometimes I feel that things get so heated and it's just about winning as opposed to having a real dialogue.
Again, I just think getting to the existential issues, the shifts. Cobb County underwent a significant shift in 2020, and so it doesn't allow policy issues to move forward as business as usual. We had opportunity to step back and just recognize what was occurring in this county, and I just think, and I can say for me personally, again, having the history of being here, I just saw the needs and I thought, well, I'm here, I'm going to address those needs, not really comprehending the weight of these changes. And I don't know if I'm dating myself. There used to be this book called Who Moved My Cheese, and about opposition to just change. And hopefully, we've just had my second term. We just had a recent election.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. We've moved a little bit past that storming. Forming storming part, and now things will norm a little bit so we can perform as a county. And
hopefully that's the plan. Well, we do have, you have maintained a AAA perfect rating for this county. So I guess my next question was, as we're closing things out, what are your future plans and how are you going to take that success, emulate it, maintain it, fiscally moving into, I guess, 2028 years?
Well, we're very fortunate, right? For those 27 years that we've obtained that rating, it was done with leadership of the county, in our county manager's office, in our finance department, the way that our managers run their departments, the way that commissioners lead. So we cannot take for granted that secret sauce that we have that looks at how do we make sure that everything that we do, we are doing to create financial stability, not just for here, but looking out into the future so that we're setting up the future years of Cobb County for success. So I don't ever, with any interest or ideas or goals that I have, I don't ever want to take away from that base that we've had here in the county, from being fiscally responsible, fiscally sound.
So, and everyone's happy with that, and with I think businesses do gravitate to Cobb. It is considered one of the richest counties in Georgia.
Yes,
and we are very fortunate. We have a lot of good leadership attributed to people like you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you.
And finally, as we consider closing out, I know maybe we have some young viewers. What would be your advice to someone who is aspiring to have a leadership role down the road in their life? What would you tell a young African-American girl or minority or person of color who wanted to be like Lisa Cupid?
Oh my goodness. Know you are leading today and every day. And we don't unpack just my childhood growing up, but I've always felt different. And sometimes those differences led to adversity. And nobody likes to go through adversity. But I think if you stay principled in it, that there could be some good things on the other side of that that you might not ever see, that could put you in your purpose. I don't think any one of us can operate very well in our purpose unless we can get through the challenges of life that help to build and fortify who we are. And so for any young person, just stand in who you are. Lead is who you are and how you've been made to be. And I think just be confident, be positive, irrespective of those challenges, and know that there's something greater on the other side of those.
I want to thank you so very much.
Thank
You
you.
have been outstanding. I'm so happy you could join us.
Thank you.
I want to close out and thank our chairwoman for joining us today. She has much better things to do than to talk to me, but I'm so happy she could bring a little piece of herself. And thank you for joining us at Smart Justice Works, and hope to see you again. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.